So the Rockets are ready to get back into FBS competition with San Jose State coming to town. So we welcome in Mike Robinson, sideline reporter for the Rocket Radio Network. Mike Rob, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark.
So did you have a hard time keeping track of all the scores on Saturday against Texas Southern?
I mean, it's like when I'm playing video games versus my little cousin, just keep scoring and scoring and scoring, and then you make them quit. And that's exactly what Toledo did in the first half. First half, they made them quit with scoring the most points that they've ever had. So tip of the hat to the offense.
And defense, obviously, is an FCS opponent, not necessarily a very good FCS opponent, but the defense, you hold anybody to only 3 points, you're doing some good things.
And what you like about that win is just up front, everybody had question marks about the defensive line, and no matter who it is, and we hear this stuff from Deion Sanders over at Colorado, and he talked about the transition from HBCU to Colorado. He took a lot of his Louis luggage from that HBCU, and they're playing well at Colorado. And it's the same thing. You expect the guys to line up against you. They're on scholarship. They play football. But for Toledo, our guys stepped up, and they showed how dominant they were and how hungry they were. And that was the key for me to see Judge Culpepper getting in the backfield, Kevon Butler back healthy, getting after it. It looked really good.
Another good part about that game, a lot of depth because it was a blowout. Rock gave a lot of guys some playing time.
Yeah, it was nice to see Connor Waldensack getting some handoffs in the backfield. You see Braden Knowles making tackles. He had one last week. And it's refreshing to see the young guys finally getting on field and getting on film. I think that's so important for the coaching staff to have those guys on film to be able to evaluate them and not just evaluate them versus the ones and twos.
Now, we knew this year coming in, the running back approach was going to be a little bit by committee with both Jacques Stewart as well as Penny Boone. Penny Boone really put a solid foot in that door with the performance against Texas Southern. We've heard a lot about how he's reshaped his body to be able to play 4 quarters of football again.
Penny Boone, what a great story he is, being a Big Ten kid and finally coming over to the MAC and then getting his footing. He talked about last year just making his adjustments, and we all got to make those adjustments. Heck, I had to make an adjustment this summer. I had to lose about 20 pounds myself. So I'm with Penny Boone. When you lose the weight, you feel really good, and especially, like he said, on his ankles and his knees, it felt much better. But the Toledo running back room, Nate Cole is blessed. He's got about 5 or 6 active running backs that can handle their job. And Mike Drennan, we saw him play late in the game, but he is special. He was the number 3 recruit in the state of Ohio in 2019, and he stuck behind those guys in rotation.
There was a lot of concern about how the Rockets would respond after the loss to Illinois. You come out and you put up 70-some points. That's the proper response against an FCS opponent.
Absolutely. When you have a team like that come into your house, home game, first home game of the year, it's so hyped up. It's the biggest party in Toledo, 22-something thousand people in the house. You got to show up if you want them to come back. So putting that exclamation mark on that first home opener, I think, was very important because now everybody in the city is buzzing. Toledo's getting that vibe, and you get to wash that nasty taste about what happened in Champaign down and get to restart and do something fresh.
So this Saturday, San Jose State comes in from California, a 1-2 Spartan team. They've lost to USC. They lost another Pac-12 school. They got their first win last week against an FCS opponent as well. So this is going to be, I think, a good test for the Rockets. San Jose State's not a bad program.
Yeah, they're not a bad football team at all by any stretch of the imagination. They're going to throw the ball. They got 2 quarterbacks that's pretty well. They got a freshman quarterback in Butterfield that we might even see slide out this weekend because he did some really nice things late in the game versus Oregon State. I watched a couple of their games, and you know what? Their offensive line, they're not that tough, and then they're defensively, they like to send a lot of pressure. So we've seen a couple of times where quarterbacks will have plenty of time to sit in the pocket, and if you let DQ sit in that pocket, he's going to go 94% on you. So you got to make sure you add that pressure. But with the running backs running the way they are and the offensive line getting it in and seeing the 12 personnel touch the field, that's 2 tight ends and 1 back. The Rockets are dominant up front where they have that big surface and able to run and find those gaps.
What's the biggest challenge for UT in their final non-conference game?
I think the biggest challenge for them is just not to get complacent, not to take that win. And I don't think they're going to hang that win and say, hey, this is what we're going to say our hallmark is for the season. They got to take this win, wash it down, and come back and do it again.
Actually, not their final non-conference game. They get into conference play. Following week against Western Michigan, they do have that game at UMass on the horizon as well. So it's not quite the final non-conference game. So Rockets, San Jose, under the lights at the Glass Bowl. Mike Rob, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mark.